You're about to hear something that might challenge you, unsettle you, maybe even irritate you, but it will also clarify something in your life that has been confusing you for years. Because the truth is, most people walk through their relationships half awake, half aware, assuming they know themselves, assuming they know what the other person feels, assuming the connection will just work itself out. But you're here because you're tired of assumptions. You want clarity. You want depth. You want the kind of insight that forces you to rise above the noise and finally understand what's really happening beneath the surface. And that's exactly what you're going to get. Stay with me. Because in the next few minutes, you're going to see something you've never seen before, a shift in perspective so sharp that it cuts through every illusion you've carried into your relationships. You're going to understand why certain patterns keep repeating, why some people pull away the moment you get close, why others become attached to you for reasons they can't even explain. You're going to learn the one emotional dynamic that almost no one talks about, but every meaningful relationship depends on, whether they realize it or not. If you've ever found yourself overthinking, doubting your worth, questioning your decisions, or wondering why the wrong people get your best while the right people slip away, then you need to hear this. Not later, not someday. Now, because what you're about to understand will not only change how you approach others, it will change how you approach yourself. So don't blink, don't get distracted, don't click away. This might be the moment your entire story starts to shift. When people talk about attraction between younger women and older men, they always focus on the shallow explanations. They point at money, status, security, or even manipulation. But these explanations have no psychological weight because they completely ignore the deeper mechanisms running quietly beneath human behavior. If you strip everything superficial away, the age gap, the social judgments, the assumptions, you're left with one truth. Younger women aren't drawn to older men because they're older. They're drawn because older men radiate a very specific energy that younger men simply haven't developed yet. It is the kind of energy that cannot be faked, forced, borrowed, or copied. It is earned through the slow, uncomfortable growth only life can teach. Younger women subconsciously sense emotional stability long before they consciously register it. The human nervous system is ancient. Long before language existed, we survived by reading energy, tone, presence, pacing, breathing, confidence. Younger women detect these signals instantly. They notice when a man's emotions are regulated instead of chaotic. They notice when a man speaks from calm confidence rather than fragile bravado. They notice when a man's silence is steady, not insecure. This energy does something to them. It relaxes their nervous system, and a relaxed nervous system is one of the strongest foundations of attraction. Younger men often misunderstand this. They think attraction comes from pushing harder, proving more, acting louder, trying to show their worth, but that very effort reveals their lack of emotional grounding. They respond to pressure with panic, to conflict with defensiveness, and to uncertainty with impulsivity. Younger women can feel this instantly. Their bodies read it before their minds even process it. A man who is easily shaken, easily provoked, easily discouraged cannot create emotional safety. And emotional safety is not a luxury. It's a biological requirement. Older men, however, have weathered storms. They have experienced loss, failure, conflict, heartbreak, rebuilding. Their confidence is not theoretical. It is born from knowing that the world can break you and you can still grow back stronger. So when an older man enters a room, his presence communicates something very few younger men can offer. I have lived. I have learned. I have grounded myself. And younger women feel pulled toward that, not because it impresses them, but because it stabilizes them. This is why an older man doesn't need to talk too much. His energy speaks for him. Younger women notice the way he sits, the way he observes, the way he listens. They notice that his attention doesn't chase. yet it penetrates. They notice that his words are slower but sharper, fewer but more intentional. They notice that he doesn't compete with other men because he has nothing left to prove. That silent confidence creates a gravitational pull. It's not the arrogance of a boy trying to appear like a man, it's the quiet certainty of someone who has become one. There is also a deep psychological element at play. Younger women live in a world that is loud, fast, confusing, and overstimulated. Everything demands their attention, everything expects a performance. But the energy of an older man cuts through that noise. He becomes a place of clarity in a world full of chaos. He becomes a grounding point, a reference point, an anchor. He doesn't overwhelm her, he stabilizes her. He doesn't rush her, he slows the environment around her. This energetic contrast makes her feel something she doesn't often feel with younger men: safe, valued, and understood. Many people mistake this for a father figure dynamic, but that's simplistic and inaccurate. It's not about replacing anybody. It's about resonance. It's about polarity. It's about psychological compatibility. A younger woman's openness, creativity, and emotional expressiveness complement an older man's discipline, wisdom, and stability. They don't fill each other's voids. They amplify each other's strengths. And you know what makes it magnetic? Neither of them chooses this dynamic. Their energies choose for them. When a woman encounters a man who carries emotional maturity, presence, restraint, and quiet confidence, her entire system recognizes it. She feels grounded, she feels calmer, she feels more feminine, more expressive, more connected to her own emotions. Without realizing it, she gravitates toward him because she feels more like herself in his presence. That is what makes the attraction powerful. That is what makes it real. The magnetic pull isn't physical, it's psychological, it's emotional, it's spiritual. It's the ancient dance between masculine grounding and feminine expression. A younger woman isn't drawn to the age of the man. She is drawn to the man he became over time. And here's the truth every man needs to understand. It's not the years that make you attractive. It's who you become during those years. One of the biggest misunderstandings in modern dating is that women chase confidence. They don't. Anyone can act confident for a few minutes. Anyone can fake charm, posture, or charisma. What younger women actually sense in older men is something far deeper and far rarer. A man who knows who he is, not who he's pretending to be, not who he's trying to be, but who he has become through years of self-confrontation, pain, growth, and uncomfortable truth. Identity is not something we discover. Identity is something we build. And older men have had more time to build it. That's the difference. Younger men often rush into relationships with a shaky sense of self, hoping the woman will complete them, validate them, or help them figure out their purpose. But younger women feel that uncertainty instantly. They feel when a man leans on them emotionally because he doesn't know how to hold himself. They feel when he wants her presence to fill the void of his lack of direction. And they feel when he's more focused on impressing her than expressing his real self. Older men, however, have lived through the seasons of life that taught them who they are without needing anyone to define it for them. They've made mistakes, taken risks, lost things, rebuilt themselves, and confronted the parts of their personality that needed evolution. They've had dreams that didn't work out, relationships that collapsed, successes that demanded responsibility, and failures that demanded humility. All of that creates depth. Younger women feel that depth the moment an older man speaks. Not because he is older, but because his words carry the weight of experience. When a man truly knows himself, he doesn't panic in silence. He doesn't break under pressure. He doesn't over-explain. He doesn't hide behind ego or performance. He is comfortable with both his strengths and his weaknesses. He is comfortable saying, "I don't know," because his identity isn't built on pretending to be perfect. He is comfortable walking away from situations that don't align with his values because he has clarity on what those values are. And that level of internal stability is incredibly attractive to a younger woman who is still navigating her own inner landscape. Identity creates emotional gravity. It creates a field around a man that makes people naturally respect him. Younger women are sensitive to this. They notice the stillness in his presence. They notice that when he enters a room, he doesn't try to grab attention, yet attention shifts toward him anyway. They notice that his validation isn't cheap or thrown around casually, and that scarcity makes it valuable. A woman doesn't want admiration from a man who admires everyone. She wants admiration from a man who sees her uniquely. Older men give this, not out of strategy but out of alignment with who they are. Another reason younger women are drawn to a man with a clear identity is because it makes her feel safe to be herself. When she is with a man who is confused about who he is, she becomes confused about who she needs to be. She starts adjusting, performing, overthinking, but when she meets a man who is rooted, centered, and grounded, she relaxes. She becomes more authentic, more expressive, more emotionally open. This self-knowing energy from him creates self-trust energy in her. A man who knows himself doesn't seek approval. He doesn't operate from insecurity. He doesn't measure his worth through her reactions. That is why his presence feels different. He gives without fear. He leads without dominance. He listens without feeling threatened. He expresses without needing applause. That type of man is rare, and rarity is irresistible. Philosophically, human attraction is not purely physical, it is deeply existential. We are drawn to people who remind us of who we want to become. Younger women often admire older men because they represent qualities they value: discipline, maturity, clarity, purpose. And it's not the age that carries those qualities, it's the identity shaped by years of accountability and growth. The truth is simple. A man who knows who he is stands out in a culture full of men pretending to be something they're not. And younger women are not confused. They see the difference immediately. Every man listening to this needs to understand one thing clearly: identity doesn't come from age. It comes from evolution. If you want to be the kind of man who attracts deeply, meaningfully, and effortlessly, become the man whose sense of self cannot be shaken by circumstances, opinions, or insecurities. Because a man who knows himself becomes a man others cannot ignore. If there is one thing that separates older men from younger men more clearly than anything else, it's emotional discipline. Not emotional suppression, not emotional coldness, and not emotional avoidance, but emotional discipline. The ability to feel deeply yet respond wisely. The ability to stay grounded when others panic. The ability to stay calm when others become chaotic. Younger women notice this instantly because it is one of the rarest masculine traits to find in today's world. Younger men often confuse emotional discipline with indifference. They think shutting down is strength. They think not caring is power. But shutting down is fear, not strength. Indifference is insecurity pretending to be confidence. A man who cannot feel cannot connect, and a man who cannot connect cannot lead a relationship. Emotional discipline is not about numbness. It's about mastery. And mastery is something that only comes from life experience, from surviving disappointment, from rebuilding oneself after heartbreak, from learning to navigate the storms without losing oneself in them. Older men have lived long enough to understand that reacting impulsively never leads anywhere meaningful. They know anger destroys more than it solves. They know jealousy comes from insecurity, not love. They know conflict requires clarity, not chaos. They've made the mistakes younger men are still in the process of making, and they've learned from them. This learning becomes wisdom, and that wisdom becomes calm. Younger women feel that calm like a soothing force in a loud world. Emotional discipline shows up in small ways that make a huge difference. When something upsets him, he pauses. When something confuses him, he asks questions instead of jumping to conclusions. When something hurts him, he expresses it without exploding. When he feels attraction, he doesn't rush. When he feels interest, he doesn't suffocate. His presence is steady, not unpredictable, and this steadiness becomes emotional oxygen for a younger woman who has lived around men who treat emotional chaos like a personality trait. A younger woman's nervous system reacts immediately to the emotional state of the man she's with. If he is anxious, she becomes anxious. If he is insecure, she becomes unsure. If he reacts without thinking, she loses trust in his leadership. Many younger men don't realize how deeply their emotional instability affects the woman they're with. They think she's overreacting, when in reality she's simply responding to the instability she senses. But an older man is different. He knows how to regulate himself. He knows how to breathe through tension. He knows how to communicate without attacking. He knows how to remain present even when he's frustrated. He has learned through experience that emotional impulsivity is the fastest way to destroy trust, and trust is everything to a woman, especially a younger woman who is still learning to trust herself. When a younger woman experiences the emotional steadiness of an older man, it feels like stepping out of a storm and into shelter. She feels protected, not controlled. She feels guided, not pushed. She feels safe, not silenced. This emotional safety is not about power, it's about presence. It's about a man who refuses to let his emotions become weapons. It's about a man who chooses responsibility over reaction. Philosophically, emotional discipline is the highest form of masculine maturity. It is the transformation of instinct into intention. It is the recognition that strength is not in force, but in restraint. Younger women are not drawn to older men because they have more years, but because those years have shaped their ability to stay steady when it matters. And in a world where predictability is rare, emotional consistency becomes extremely attractive. One of the deepest truths about attraction is that a woman does not fall for how a man behaves when everything is going well. She falls for how he behaves when everything is falling apart. And older men, having faced more storms, know how to stay calm inside the chaos. Their steadiness creates a psychological anchor that younger women naturally gravitate toward. Every man listening to this needs to understand, emotional discipline is not optional. It is foundational. If you want to be trusted, you must learn to regulate yourself. If you want to be respected, you must learn to pause before reacting. If you want to be desired, you must learn to control your emotions instead of letting them control you. Because the truth is simple, a man who can master his emotions becomes a man a woman never forgets. One of the most powerful, yet least understood reasons younger women feel such a strong pull toward older men is because an older man's attention is not freely available. It is not scattered. It is not impulsively given. It is not thrown at anyone who simply looks good for a moment. His attention has weight. His interest has intention. His time has value. And younger women feel this instantly because emotional value is not measured in words. It is measured in energy. Younger men often give their attention away too easily. They respond to every message, entertain every distraction, chase every opportunity, and validate without thinking. Their attention is cheap because they haven't yet learned the art of selectiveness. They say yes to everything, not because they truly want everything, but because they fear missing out or being alone. Younger women sense this lack of emotional boundaries. They can feel when a man is available to everyone. They can feel when his interest requires no effort, and anything that requires no effort rarely feels special. Older men are different because life has taught them the power of conserving their emotional energy. They have learned that not every connection is meaningful. Not every attraction is worth pursuing. Not every woman deserves access to their inner world. Years of experience teach them what aligns with their values and what doesn't. They don't chase novelty, they seek depth. They don't rush into excitement, they wait for resonance. And this level of intentionality is deeply attractive to younger women because it makes his attention precious. When an older man chooses to give his attention, it feels earned, not in a manipulative way, but in a meaningful way. He doesn't give compliments lightly. He doesn't pursue unless he truly feels resonance. He doesn't promise what he cannot sustain. So when he looks at a younger woman and genuinely sees her, she feels the difference. She knows his interest is not coming from boredom, loneliness, or desperation. It is coming from discernment, from maturity, from conscious choice. Younger women are not attracted to difficulty. They are attracted to value, and value is always tied to scarcity. When a man's attention is given selectively, it becomes a signal of self-respect. It communicates that he is not emotionally accessible to everyone. It communicates that he has standards. It communicates that he has lived long enough to understand what kind of connection actually nourishes him. That kind of man becomes magnetic because his attention feels like a privilege, not a routine gesture. There is also a psychological element at play. Younger women often operate in a social environment where validation is abundant but meaningless. Social media gives compliments but not connection. Text messages give words but not depth. Attention is everywhere, but quality attention is almost non-existent. So when an older man enters her life and gives her a type of attention that is grounded, calm, and intentional, it stands out. It feels different because it is different. Older men don't rush. They don't panic if she takes time to respond. They don't measure their worth by how fast she replies. They don't crumble when she pulls away for a moment. Their emotional self-sufficiency means they don't need her attention. They choose it. And when a woman feels chosen rather than needed, she becomes drawn to him in a deeper way. This is why younger women often become more invested when an older man maintains his boundaries. His restraint isn't rejection, it's clarity, and clarity is attractive. It shows that his life is full, his purpose is strong, and his identity is intact. He is not seeking a woman to fill gaps within him, he is inviting her to join a life he has already built. Philosophically, value is always shaped by scarcity and intention. We are naturally drawn to what feels meaningful, not what feels easily accessible. Younger women don't want a man who gives his attention to everyone. They want a man who gives his attention with purpose. And older men, having lived enough life to know the cost of wasted energy, embody this trait without even trying. Every man listening to this must understand one truth clearly: attention is a form of currency. The cheaper you give it, the less it's worth. But when you become intentional, selective, and self-respecting with your attention, you don't just attract women. You attract alignment. Because at the end of the day, a man whose attention has value becomes a man whose presence becomes unforgettable. There is something almost paradoxical about the attraction between younger women and older men. The relationship feels lighter, softer, calmer, yet at the same time deeper. And the reason is simple. Older men have learned to give something younger women crave, but rarely receive: emotional maturity without emotional chaos. They offer presence without pressure, guidance without control, attention without insecurity, and connection without confusion. This balance is incredibly rare, and rarity creates attraction. Younger women live in a social climate where emotional inconsistency is normal. Younger men are often passionate but unpredictable. They love intensely but without direction. They communicate but without clarity. Their emotions rise and fall with their impulses, their moods, their environment. This kind of instability creates anxiety, not attraction. A younger woman may be drawn to the excitement at first, but eventually she feels the cost: emotional exhaustion, confusion, lack of safety, lack of grounding. Then she meets an older man, and the contrast feels almost shocking. He doesn't overwhelm her. He doesn't rush her. He doesn't demand more than she can give. He is steady, calm, grounded. His emotional responses are thoughtful, not explosive. His affection is consistent, not conditional. His presence is soothing, not stressful. She feels her nervous system relax around him, and relaxation is one of the deepest forms of attraction there is. Older men love differently because they have learned different lessons. They've learned the difference between reacting and responding. They've learned that intensity without consistency is meaningless. They've learned that genuine connection requires patience, effort, and emotional clarity. They've learned that a woman cannot feel safe just because he says she should. She feels safe when his actions make her nervous system believe it. Emotional maturity is not about being serious all the time. It's about being responsible with someone's heart. It's about not projecting your insecurities onto her. It's about not turning your stress into her burden. It's about not making her feel responsible for your happiness, your self-worth, or your identity. Younger women sense this immediately with older men. He doesn't make her carry anything she shouldn't. He handles himself. One of the most attractive qualities an older man brings is his ability to communicate with emotional honesty. He doesn't play games. He doesn't pretend to be disinterested when he clearly is. He doesn't hide behind silence to punish or manipulate, and he doesn't fear vulnerability. When he expresses himself, he does it directly and calmly. When he listens fully. When he disagrees, he communicates respectfully. Younger women notice this because it stands in stark contrast to the emotional immaturity they often experience in their own age group. Younger men frequently confuse vulnerability with weakness. Older men understand that vulnerability is strength, but controlled strength. It's the confidence to express emotion without drowning in it. It's the courage to admit fear without losing composure. It's the maturity to show affection without needing approval. Emotional maturity in an older man creates a space where a younger woman can finally express her own emotions without fear of judgment or emotional backlash. There is also a philosophical element to this dynamic. Older men have shifted from ego-driven love to soul-driven love. They're not trying to win a woman. They're not competing with other men for validation. They're not obsessed with being chosen. They want connection that nourishes them. They want peace instead of drama. They want depth instead of temporary thrills. This mindset creates a different atmosphere around them. An atmosphere younger women find deeply attractive because it mirrors the emotional safety they crave. A younger woman doesn't want a man who tries to own her. She wants a man who understands her. She doesn't want a man who reacts to her emotions. She wants a man who supports her through them. She doesn't want a man who needs her to be perfect in order to stay. She wants a man who can handle the complexities of real human connection. Older men embody this because they've learned that love isn't about control. It's about emotional presence. Every man listening to this must understand emotional maturity is not a personality trait. It is a skill. It is learned, it is practiced, it is earned, and it is one of the most attractive qualities you can cultivate, regardless of age. Because at the end of the day, the deepest truth is this: a woman is not drawn to the number of years you've lived. She's drawn to the wisdom those years have taught you.